In the Netherlands, there are a few dozen ecological and organic farmers and also agroecology activists of Extinction Rebellion who work together with these farmers. However, the majority of the farms in the Netherlands are large-scale and industrial. And these conventional farmers have been protesting on the streets in the past years, but their message is not about ecology. Their message is about protecting the industrial farming methods, and I including pesticides, artificial fertilizer, large industrial livestock operations. And they often also express far-right political views. My first question is, how do you explain that these farmers don't see what they're actually doing to the earth?
Well, you know, being blinded by the false narrative is very normal. And usually what I've seen, particularly in the West, is large farmers and their organizations become marketing agents for the chemicals. So the magazines of the farmers is how the companies advertise the next fertilizer, pesticide, or whatever. So they're one. I talked about governments not being separate from corporations. Large farmers end up being extensions of agribusiness. That's why small farmers, ecological farmers, who are independent, who use their minds, who use their freedom, become the real farmers. The rest are salesmen.
And how is it possible that they don't see this? They work with the soil every day.
Because they were made to believe that soil is an inert container. The activity comes from the chemical. That's the illusion that has been created. The soil is empty, the seed is empty, the earth is empty, sterile nullius. We bring the power. And they believe it, you know, they borrow for big machines, they borrow for huge spraying, and since there is no true cost accounting, you know, so there are three partners in this issue. There's the corporations themselves, the poison cartel. There's the governments that assist them. Think of it. Think of the fact that half of the tax money of European citizens goes to subsidize those chemicals in industry farming. In CAP. Half of your money, half of your agricultural policy, half of your money is going to assist the corporations. So you can also say, why don't the citizens know? Because they're not told. And actually, CAP was supposed to wrap up because of the WTO. Those subsidies are illegal. They made a commitment in Hong Kong. They've never lived up to that commitment.
Sorry, because of the
World Trade Organization.
Yes.
The World Trade Organization is supposed to remove the subsidies. But what they've done is remove the support to the small farmers, and expanded the subsidy to corporations in all kinds of ways.
What was their motive for doing that?
That's where they get the profit margin. So if something costs X and I get a subsidy, I've already reduced my burden and costs. And the industrial agricultural economy is not just based on agrochemicals, which are poisons. It's based on a false calculus. It hides the true costs. Yes. And it puts those costs on the environment, on the earth, on citizens. So I think, particularly for Netherlands, because this debate began from here, instead of talking about small farmers, ecological farmers versus the big ones who are allied with industry, we should now talk of food systems and bring together the three players in the food system. First, the earth herself. Without soil and the seed and biodiversity, there will be no food. So she has to be the first actor. The second is small farmers, because they take care of the land. And the third is the eater. There is no food system without people who eat the food. And I think it's time for the eaters to start saying we don't want to eat poison. That's what will take the power away. Sitting there with their t-shirts, no GMO free. but we should start saying poison free also.
I think we don't need to convince this audience very much, but I'm more concerned about the rest of the audience out there. How do we convince those other consumers?
I don't think you ever convince someone else. Change comes from two things. One's your commitment to be the change. I saw that's the slogan. Yeah, being the change. You have to be the change. But the second is creating alliances that then change the perception of power.
Could you explain that?
So just take Odin itself. You know, here would have been individual farmers having a struggle, bringing whatever good things they grown to a market. And they got together with the eaters, and they've created a huge cooperative. And we had a wonderful breakfast before coming here at one of their cafes. Now that's what food should look like everywhere. There should be no ultra-processed food and junk food. There should be no fake food allowed. Thank God, Italy has done a lot of wrong. But the one thing it's done, it has banned fake food. Yeah? No fake food. No lab food. Food is our currency of life. Food is our connector, the soil, the plants in us. Food connects the producer of food and the eater of food. It's the ultimate connector. And we cannot afford to make it the separator, the divider. So yes, that agribusiness has captured some of the big farmers is the reason all the other groups should create alliances to create a more coherent narrative, a more inspiring narrative, and connect to the earth. I think bring the earth back into the discourse. There is no way the poison cartel will win.
So I think we're not completely done with the farmers yet, because Tosca's actual question, before I got squeezed my question in there, was how can we, and she is from Extinction Rebellion, so how can we and Extinction Rebellion build bridges between those farmers and their movements? How can we reach them? Should we reach them?
No, but reaching out is vital. To reach out to them as farmers, I think the best thing would to bring them for parties at the kind of cafe that I was at. Nothing will convince them more than good food. They will realize they themselves are getting poisoned. Every year, 200,000, largely farmers, die because of pesticide poisoning. 200,000. It's not a small amount. And they're being presented to say pesticides are good for them. No, I think there are 180,000 cases in America. When the World Health Organization released its report that glyphosate is a carcinogen, one by one, people in America started to say, I spray Roundup in a garden, and I've got cancer. I got cancer. Farmer, I've got cancer. They started to bring cases against Monsanto. Bayer has lost all the money it spent to buy Monsanto for these cases already.
Honestly?
Yeah, it's already. Yeah.
So they're not too happy with their purchase there.
No, they're losing, and they will be destroyed because of the cancer cases. Bayer eventually will. They had to throw their CEO out because he's the one who suggested that they buy Monsanto. But the big reason was Monsanto's name was so bad that they went right. I've done a book called Oneness versus 1% because I wanted to understand how did Bayer buy Monsanto. And I realized both of them are owned by the same asset management funds, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. All the corporations are owned by, so it was like a change in musical chairs. And they thought if we get rid of the name Monsanto but keep selling the poison, everyone will accept it. So we've got to name the poison. Their names will keep changing. But that doesn't matter, poison. And yes, reach out, but reach out with the real farmers. I think now, for me, the future of truth is real farmers, real seed, real food. You stick to these three realities, we'll have a wonderful world.
some light in the room again. How do we deal with the rise of right-wing extremism and fascism in India, the US, Europe, and elsewhere, along with its capitalist pushback against decolonial and radical environmentalism?
Sure.
I think the two issues. We have a tendency to give power to an individual who has been put to play a role. So I go to America, everyone's crying about Trump. You know? But you have to study them, you have to understand them, and realize they are all clones of each other. They look alike. But the second thing is, if the BlackRocks of the world are controlling the Monsantos and the Coca-Colas and the McDonald's, how much of the political genetic engineering is being done to divide the people around hate and capture all the markets into a monopoly? How much of it is part of a divide and rule policy for the market? How do we deal with that? That's why I loved her poem, you know, love. We deal with uniting in love that no one can break. Celebrating our diversity, but not becoming afraid of diversity as if it's a difference that pits us against each other. And the second is that the more we unite through love, we have to, at the same time, defend our sovereignties. I started the movement for seed saving, and in our Indian language I called it Beat Swaraj, self-rule. But in English we call it seed sovereignty and seed freedom. But the same applies to food. We've got to defend our food freedom. Just think of it. There's the push for fake food, there's been chemical food, there's been ultra-processed food, and now there's a hyper-industrialism of food in the lab, all being offered in the name of climate change. A fake, greenwashed narrative of climate change. Now, if the progressive community doesn't take this, you will leave it to the right way.
So going back to this question of how we can oppose the rise of right-wing extremism, sorry, but could you be a bit more specific of how you feel like we can do
so
that?
All the right-wing extremism has two prongs. The first prong is hate and exclusion. The second prong is neoliberalism, corporate takeover, globalization in the hands of corporation. So you have to address both prongs together. As I said, you have to address hate through love and unity. And you have to respond to corporate neoliberalism by reclaiming sovereignty. And therefore, local food economies become vital. Overall, local economies become vital. You know, if corporate globalization is the direction they're pushing through deregulation and neoliberalism, then ecological localization becomes the antidote. That's where we take control.